how many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into 14P Fantasy. I am your host, Justin Wright. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're talking Dynasty startup strategy. So when you are in your startup drafts, there's a couple of ways you could go. Obviously, the main two everybody's gonna be familiar with, immediate contender. You grab everybody that's in their prime and you were just going for the title. The other one, my personal favorite, if it's a league you think is gonna last, we call it, though, the young core, and that's what we're talking about today. Basically, how do you build a team that may not compete year one, but by the time, year two, year three rolls around, you're looking like a juggernaut team. You are a top team in that league. There's a couple of ways to go about this. You can go hyper young. You could kind of split the middle and get guys that have flashed already. There's a few things you can do here. For this specific draft, there's no rookie picks. No rookies, so that does play a factor into how many, obviously, young pieces are available. If you're going young core, you're going to prioritize 2022 first-round picks. I mean, that's just how it should work. But before we get into this draft here, guys, remember, we do have a Patreon page. Our Dynasty rankings are now live over there. Marco broke down 240 players, a little bit extra, I think maybe 242, something like that, tiered out by position. So full Dynasty rankings tiered for each position. And then on top of it, we have our rookie rankings tiered as well for every position. The full draft is tiered also. You also get access to all of our rookie profile videos at least a few days in advance. So you get exclusive early access to that. We'll break down a Dynasty team for you if you send us screenshots. So go and check all of that out, guys. Patreon.com/14P Fantasy, or just look up 14 Personnel. Also, while you're here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the simple stuff like that. And with that being said, let's get our draft board up here. We are just doing a 1 QB draft, 12 teams, PPR, no tight end premium. We're only doing the first 10 rounds because, that is your core of your team, really. The first 7-8 picks should be the core base of your team. So it's important to think, all right, how am I going to look coming out of, the first few rounds of these drafts? Again, they should be 20-something rounds in a typical Dynasty league. So hopefully this is about half your draft here. All right, let's get ready. I'm going to pull up our player board here, and then I will start this draft for us. We'll see how this goes. There is the noise coming from Sleeper. Let's mute that. But as we look at this, the top two picks off the board, Najee, Jonathan Taylor. Sleeper doesn't take the automatic first guy. It should be JT. But when you're looking at a young core team, looking at this roster, Alvin Kamara off the list, CMC, Devontae Adams, Dalvin Cook, all of those guys are off the list, honestly. You can go and look at running back here, although I think you can get some cheaper guys in the following rounds. Really what I want to do is I want to look at wide receiver. Who is my wide receiver one? For me, between Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, I'm going to grab Justin Jefferson. I think the ceiling from any of these guys is really, as good as you can find. I think we know that. So typically if I'm going young core, I'm going to look to build with wide receivers first. That should be the way you do it if you're not going to be an immediate contender. Spending super high draft picks on running backs, mainly the first pick on running back can be dicey because guys can lose value pretty damn quickly. Now when I'm looking here, the next piece on my board, I'm looking at wide receiver and I'm looking at running back still. Maybe I'm looking over at Kyle Pitts down here in the third. If he gets back to me, he's a consideration. But for me, there's not a young wide receiver that I am absolutely in love with here. So I'm going to go to running back. And honestly, for me, I am taking Antonio Gibson. He is the next guy here where he has at least 2 more years of great value. So I'm happy to scoop up Antonio Gibson there over DK Metcalf. That's a close one. And now when you're looking at that team, again, you're still not looking at quarterback. That's going to be one of the last things you fill. And as you're looking around pick 27, 28, all of these wide receivers, Hopkins, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, those 3 not on my list. Again, I'm looking for guys that are going to build in value. So maybe Jalen Waddle, Deontay Johnson. But really, the most exciting young pick you can make, and a guy that, even if he doesn't fully become, a superstar in year 2, 2023, 2024, you expect great things from Kyle Pitts. So I will scoop up Kyle Pitts there. And right now we're looking at Justin Jefferson, Antonio Gibson, Kyle Pitts. It's really tough to get a lot younger than that without just taking straight up rookies. So again, that is a team that very well could compete this year on top of being better and better the following season. And as I look at the draft board here, it hurts. It hurts seeing T. Higgins go. That's really a guy that was at the top of my list there. So we have a couple options. You can take Devonta Smith, Brandon Ayuk, guys like Evans, Cooper, Thomas, if I'm trying to stay young, are not going to be on my radar still. So you got to scroll maybe at wide receiver. Smith, Ayuk, Pittman, Judy, all guys that make a lot of sense here. And when you go and look at the overall board, you could scoop up Kyler. I'm not a fan of going QB and tight end early in Dynasty just because it does limit you at wide receiver and tight end, or wide receiver and running back. So you need to be aware of that. If we look back at running back here, there's a few guys that do fit that young mold. CEH, only 22 years old still. Josh Jacobs, I'm out on. Fournette, not a chance. Miles Sanders, no thanks. Travis Etienne's really the one here. So really we're between Etienne, Devonta Smith, Ayuk. And when you look at it, you have to play that game of who do I think comes back to me? Who does it make sense to kind of pull the trigger on? And when looking at these running backs, Travis Etienne feels like a tier break in terms of young available running backs. So I'm going to scoop him up with the assumption that a few of those wide receivers I like make it back to me. And would you look at that guy at the top of my list, Devonta Smith, makes it back around. So right now, we're looking at a team of Justin Jefferson, Antonio Gibson, Pitts, Etienne, Devonta Smith. Really, we have cornerstones, what it feels like a cornerstone player at every single turn here, and that is huge. So this next pick, we have flexibility. We could go quarterback here. We could go back to wide receiver, probably not running back. I think this is kind of a weird dead spot, barring some kind of spectacular. Yep, Elijah Mitchell, Michael Carter. Both of those two guys went. Those are two other guys I'm considering in the 6th round when I'm trying to build a young team. Obviously, I'm not going to take a stab at Chris Carson or Damian Harris or James Conner, Gaskin, Edmonds. Those guys just not going to get it done for me. So really, I'm glad to go back to wide receiver here. And this is where you got to look at a few pieces. You can look at Hollywood Brown, who I think could be or is going to be or he's going to have a solid career, I should say. I'm trying to find the right words. He's going to have a solid career. Probably not a great one. Cortland Sutton, a lot of question marks. Obviously, if this was a few months later and we know Aaron Rodgers is there, Cortland Sutton's only 26. He's still plenty young. And if you knew he had Rodgers for 1 or 2 years, Cortland Sutton becomes a lot more attractive. Kenny Galladay, not a chance. Not a chance in hell. So really, we're looking down here, and we're looking at Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, two guys that jump off the page. Personally, I prefer Elijah Moore over Rashad Bateman. So I'm gonna pull the trigger on Elijah Moore, and I had to pause. I had to take a deep breath to even say that. It's odd. It's weird to think. But now you're looking at an extremely young wide receiver core in Justin Jefferson, Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore. You have Travis Etienne as well, and Antonio Gibson, Kyle Pitts. We're really filling out that team. My key pieces are all young, and that's what you want to see on a young contending roster. Now, when you're looking at quarterback, there's still a lot of guys left here. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Trey Lance, Justin Fields is down there. So there's plenty of options for young quarterbacks. So honestly, you can look at running back, but that list hasn't changed. I'm happy to go back to wide receiver here. And again, you can go a couple of ways with this. If I knew who Cortland Sutton's quarterback was, he'd be higher on my list, but I don't. So I am going to continue to just scoop up these second-year wide receivers, knowing, all three of these will not pan out most likely. That's just playing the odds of the NFL. But I will take Rashad Bateman because, again, I expect some of these guys to take a second-year leap. And if they do, you're looking at potentially a contending roster. And if you're not contending in this season and, you kind of falter, then you have an early rookie pick in 2023. You're adding another running back to the group of Gibson and ETN that should be an immediate difference maker. So it's very difficult there when you're trying to kind of piece together these last three picks of, all right, do I want to get a fifth wide receiver? Do I want to grab a third running back that I don't really believe in? Do I want to grab my quarterback finally? Because at some point, we have to. I'm going to continue to wait on quarterback. I like Trey Lance. He's great. But with Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence there, Deshaun Watson is the ultimate upside play. There's plenty of guys there to fill that out. So let's go back to running back. At this point in the 8th round, you're not finding young, up-and-coming running backs. It's just not happening. So you have to draft guys that could play their way into value. And if you're not contending, they're guys you can then look to flip. Typically, I do not draft to trade. I don't think that's an ideal strategy. But for us, I don't think it's the end of the world, given that this team could be competitive. It could be a fringe playoff team at a minimum. And maybe Dalvin Cook goes down. And if he does, Alexander Mattison becomes an RB1. He's a trade piece as well as a guy that could have standalone value if another player were to go down. So as we're looking here, Ramondre Stevenson is a very interesting pick. But let's look back at quarterback. Nothing has changed. I think we lock in one more running back with upside. And again, I see the guys here, and we may be reaching down a little bit. But Ramondre Stevenson, if you follow the path the Patriots typically take, and that is we're going to draft a running back in the 3rd or 4th round. He probably won't play till year 2, and that's fine. Then we'll use him years 2, 3, and 4. Let him go. We'll cycle in the next running back. Right now, Damian Harris is set to cycle out after 2022. Ramondre Stevenson should take that role. And even if he doesn't, we've seen he carries enough enough standalone value to still make a difference in Dynasty. So if we scoop up Ramondre Stevenson here, he's a guy that could, be gaining value into 2023 if he's able to kind of, prove they don't need Damian Harris anymore. That's really where his value is going to hinge on. So that is something to monitor. But now as we go through here, if we didn't need a quarterback, there's a couple of ways you can go about this. Really you could take Tom Brady and look to trade him. Again, not a fan of trading here. But at this point in the draft, I wouldn't be taking a quarterback still. Tua, Kirk Cousins, Zach Wilson, plenty of guys down there. So you know what? I'm not going to take a quarterback. We're just going to have no quarterback through the first 10 rounds. And honestly, that's fine. That's typically how I like to build my teams, and I'll piece it together with good to not great quarterback play at the end. I think you can get by with that, especially in a 1 QB league. So now we go back to wide receiver. I think that's really the next place we need to be looking to add depth, adding our 5th wide receiver. And there's a few guys. Rondale Moore, absolutely. You could scoop him up. I am not a fan, so he's not someone I'm looking at. Laviska and Christian Kirk are the 2 guys that jump off the page. Will Fuller, Jarvis. If I'm trying to get a team that's not competing necessarily this season, I don't want them. Christian Kirk right now is a big question mark with free agency up in the air. So I'm going to go back to a post-hype sleeper, and that's Laviska. And if you check out our previous video, Dynasty Flyers, Laviska Shenault is on that list as well. So just another guy to kind of round out that depth at wide receiver. So this team overall, when you're looking at the true core of it, you're looking at Justin Jefferson, Kyle Pitts, Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman as your pass catchers. And then your running backs of Gibson, ETN, Ramondre Stevenson. In reality, that is a group of players that should either maintain or gain value heading into 2023. And again, it could compete if guys take a leap. Realistically, this is most likely not a playoff team in 2022. And that's fine. That is kind of the whole goal of the young core team, knowing you're then going to add a rookie in 2023 that could be an immediate difference maker, especially in a loaded class. So you have to consider those things and just kind of bite the bullet knowing, all right, I'm probably not contending this year. And that's okay. And even if you wanted to go a different route here and trade for guys or draft guys that are win now, so you could flip them for rookie picks. You can do that too. And obviously, if there were rookie draft picks in this roster would probably look different. There'd be some different picks. So just all of those are things to keep in mind when you're trying to build that young core. Don't draft guys you don't want to own. Like if I drafted Amari Cooper and I can't trade him, am I going to be happy? If the answer is no, then don't draft Amari Cooper because there's not a guarantee you can always trade those players. But all right, guys, that is all I have for you. A quick 10-round startup featuring, a young core of players. All right, again, check out the Patreon page, Dynasty Rankings, Rookie Rankings, all of it tiered, early access to rookie videos. We'll break down a Dynasty team for you, give you trade advice, stuff like that. On top of it, remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.